On this podcast, you'll find interviews with high-performing, successful individuals in life sciences. On a weekly basis, we cover their proven methods, principles, strategies, and mindsets to implement new technologies that scale to meet the needs of people in our world.
Welcome to Life Science Success Podcast. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Don. I'm a consultant in life sciences, and I commonly focus in on clients who are looking to increase performance and decrease complexity. However, one of the things that I've talked a lot about recently is just this idea of we started a marketing company that focuses in on companies in our space. And so if you're looking to increase your digital media presence, then D3DM or D cubed would help you do that. And so please visit our website and touch base there. In addition to that, I wanted to just to introduce my guest. My guest is Isaac Houston. Isaac is the Director of Business Development in Clinical Diagnostics at Thomas Scientific. He has experience that encompasses a large range of disciplines, and we'll get into those in the interview today. And so with that, welcome, Isaac.
Hey, thanks, Don. I appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, thanks so much for being here. I greatly appreciate it. And so just to start off, would you mind telling the listeners a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, so I guess, personally, I'm a tall, goofy looking redheaded boy from Indiana who's been married for 20 wonderful years to the smartest and most beautiful woman I know. And I have two beautiful daughters, one who's a Schreier's Honors College student there at Penn State, the other one who's here at a local high school. As I get older, my story gets longer and longer, so I apologize if I can't be brief about my history, but, I did my undergrad at Miami University of Ohio. It was in microbiology. I moved down the road to the University of Cincinnati to do my PhD in molecular genetics. I then spent 3 years in Buenos Aires, Argentina, where I got my MBA at the Universidad Torcuato de Tella. And then I came back, relocated in Massachusetts, and did my postdoc in neuroscience there at University of Massachusetts, and then moved over and was the lab director of a genomics core at Brigham and Women's Hospital, Harvard University. So it was after that I made a transition over to what I call consulting, but others might call sales. So I worked for a very short stint at Thermo Fisher. Then I did 6 years at Qiagen, working up to be the head of their OEM business for North America. About a little over a year ago, I moved over to Thomas Scientific, where you previously mentioned I'm the Director of Business Development. So currently, I reside in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. I've lived quite a few places in my life, but certainly far less than I've wanted to. But that's where I currently reside, is in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, with all the Amish.
Sounds like a popular thing to do, especially if you're from Indiana. So I grew up in Northwest Indiana as well. So
Nice.
I ventured back a couple of times in my career, but also, have found my way back out a couple of times. And currently I'm in Colorado. So I completely get the idea of relocating. And also for anybody that's listening, Miami University is north of Dayton, by the way. So, not anywhere near Florida.
Exactly. Yeah, it's most of my family's all still back there in Indiana, and I do go back quite often. So I certainly have it for roots.
Yeah, very good. So, I mean, before we really dive into kind of, your career and things like that, I wanted to just touch a little bit on, the fact that you've held a variety of positions and really, have touched on a lot of different things across life sciences. I mean, you mentioned sales a minute ago, but also business development and other things. It'd be nice to just, maybe talk about the variety of the things that you've done in your career as well.
Yeah, everything is really, I have an overarching goal in my life, and that's to consistently better myself and the world around me. Right. So I consider myself, I guess, an amateur collector of knowledge and experience. Is the way I kind of look at it. As I said, I've lived far less places than I've wanted to. But that's because I feel like you can't really know how good you have it as long as you're looking on the inside, right? You have to get outside and take an external perspective to realize how good you actually have it, or maybe you don't, right? And I feel the same way about my work experience. I like to amass skills and better myself to be able to really affect the world around me and make a lasting impact. And that doesn't necessarily mean I have to change jobs or titles, but you simply need to look at your own job differently from time to time, right? I mean, a lot of people, and I have this quote in my LinkedIn profile, is that the voyage of discovery is not through seeking new horizons, but looking through new eyes. And I think that, and that's going to be kind of my overarching theme in life, is to gather new perspectives, to reevaluate my position and how I feel about things from time to time, because that's what makes us better as people and individuals. So every job that I've approached, though, I've always approached it from the perspective to help others to accomplish their goals and make the system better overall. It's really to make a lasting impact. Otherwise, what did you really do?
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's good. Very good point. And then, in your role at Thomas Scientific, whenever you're focused in on business development, typically what types of things are you most frequently doing?
So when I'm doing business development, I mean, a lot of people I don't think really understand what the term business development means. So, maybe I should start backing up and kind of explaining that, right? I consider business development like a higher level of sales. So the goal of a salesperson is really to put a product in a customer's hands, right? And a business developer, they go a step beyond that, right? It's not only to improve the market penetrance and the scope of your own company, but it's also of your customer overall, right? And to expand their scope and their product successful and the overall marketing. I mean, I like to tell my customers, I'm not here to sell you a product. We sell partnerships, right? And a partnership goes both ways. My success depends on your success, and we both depend on the success of the market itself. I mean, only by growing to the market does it really benefit all of us, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. And then you tell us a little bit about Thomas Scientific. What is it that they do? What sort of products do they have?
Yeah. So Thomas Scientific really it's a long story because it is the second oldest life science distributor in the world, right? It was founded in 1900. It's most people remember it from the big giant catalogs that used to sit on the benches and the shelves of the labs around the world, right? Probably got tossed one too many times across the lab at somebody else because it was a monster, right? But it was known as more of a chemical and real plastics, just kind of general consumables. And we've certainly branched out in the last few years. So we are the world's largest pure play distributor. So most people think of like Fisher and VWR, right? Those are the big ones that people know the names of. And I compare them to Walmart and Target. And, it's no surprise the colors are the same, blue and red, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. There's certainly nothing wrong with having that amount of selection to choose from and products off the shelf and everything that you can get. That's certainly valuable to the customers and to the market. But I consider Thomas to be more of a niche distributor, right? And so we really look at the needs of our customers, not the needs of the market. And we attempt to enable our customers to succeed in every chance that we can. And that's either through, a supply partnership or even, our customers are a lot of the people that we distribute. And, trying to grow their company, trying to grow their market is really what Thomas is about. So a pure play distributor is really where Thomas focuses. And what I mean by that is that Fisher and VWR, they both have sections of their company that manufacture and produce, right? So they're a distributor for products. They're also internally competing against themselves because they make their own products that are competing against their customers or their suppliers that they're putting out to market. And they do that, most likely they're doing that ethically, certainly. But Thomas doesn't want to do that. We want to be able to allow all of our suppliers to have a fair share and equal attempt to reach the market and be successful, right? And so it gives us a little bit of an advantage, I think, in that we really work and be transparent with our customers as well as with our suppliers and put the two together. Right? We don't hide anything. It is Thomas's goal and mission to be the most trusted supplier, and we stand by that wholeheartedly.
Very good. And the things that I saw listed on the Thomas site as well is that you cover supplies, equipment, instruments, chemicals, and furniture. Essentially kind of the the broader, I would say, staples of, what goes into a lab, as well. Is it primarily focused just in the US or worldwide? What sort of scope do you have from a business perspective?
Yeah, so we do business worldwide. We do ship and go overseas, but most of our operation is based right here in the United States. So we have about 8 distributor hubs that we have scattered around the United States to better serve our customers. And yes, we do have like the standard products we can build, basically offer everything that is available with a lab, from instruments to furniture to all the way down to the typical consumables of gloves and tips. But furthermore, we also offer a lot of services. We also offer the ability to do complete build outs for a lab. So if they have a clean room that they're trying to build and they're having some, you know, uh, scopes and plans from people that are putting out, we'll certainly work with our customers to build that out, and provide them a proposal to take care of everything for them. But we also manage inventory. We have an inventory management system. We have the ability to store customers' product at our sites, and basically they can draw off it when they want. So, like I said, we offer a few little benefits, little added benefits to working with a smaller supplier, to what working with a big box distributor does.
Yeah. Yeah, and sometimes that inventory management piece, especially for companies that are just getting their start, can be so important as well. Just being able to effectively manage things that are coming in, especially as you're looking to scale up systems. Do you also integrate with larger scale ERP systems?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we're currently doing several integrations right now with various ERP systems. I don't personally handle those. So if you go into details and want to know which ERP systems we integrate with, I'm afraid I'm not going to be able to help you very much, but we do have a team that's dedicated to that. But yeah, I mean, going back to your point, I mean, there's a lot of customers that really see the value in that. And honestly, there's a lot of customers out there that just aren't served very well by the big box distributors, right? I mean, you have the big giant Novartis, Pfizer's, Regenerons, these giant, enormous companies that really draw on the demand of Fisher and VWR, and then you have the small mom and pop, or maybe a startup diagnostics that's trying to put a product to market. They're just as important in terms of getting their supply and getting their product and having it ready in the way and form and fashion that they want. And Thomas prides itself on being that distributor, be able to work with them hand in hand, see what their scale is going to be, and make sure that they have that constant stream, right? And that's something that I don't think you get from a big box distributor, right? I mean, Amazon doesn't care when you jump on their website and place an order. You're just somebody else in the queue, and it's nice that you have options out there for people who really care about your success and want to see you grow.
Yeah, and I mean, I think I mean, you called this out a few times, right? And I think it is a nice differentiator. I mean, oftentimes I sort of try and guide clients that I work with towards people that really want to be partners inside of their organization versus large organizations that just aren't going to take the time to really understand you or the problems that you're having or whatever. So,
Right.
I definitely can sympathize with that as well.
Yeah, I mean, I sort of tell the story. I'm like, you might walk into a Walmart or Target and you see a shirt sitting there and you're like, hey, I really like that shirt, but I'd like it a little bit bigger, maybe a little longer in the sleeves, and can you make it blue? And they're just gonna laugh at you, right? I mean, it's nice to be able to go. I mean, why do people go to these small tailors? Why do they go to these small supply shops to be able to get their product? Because they get it in the form of the fashion that they need, not the way that the market and it's a different game that you have to play when you're starting out, or when you're growing, or even sometimes when you're big.
Yeah, also true. So tell me a little bit about the customer journey whenever they come to you. So you're just wanting to delve a little bit more into the business development side of things. So are you typically, locating clients for Thomas, or do clients normally come to you saying, "Hey, look, I want to work with somebody in business development"?
Yeah, and so I mean, I think the real job of a business development specialist, or somebody that's involved in business development, is really to expand the company's footprint by targeting partnerships within corners of a market that the company might not be really known for, or maybe even just growing their general business overall, right? And again, it's from uh, you know, a global perspective. You're not focused on just growing my business, right? I'm not trying to grow up my company and try to push it forward. I'm really trying to grow my customers and the market in general to make this a bigger playing space. And that really opens the door for a lot of opportunities and growth across the board. So my job when I'm interacting with customers is I'm looking for both the supplier side to bring a new, novel, innovative diagnostic product to market, right? And to be able to evaluate that, to see the value to my customers, to see the value to the market, and be able to say, hey, this is a product that really revolutionizes things, right? It brings something new that people haven't seen. It solves a problem, and be able to take that and put it, go out and scout. What are the customers looking for? What are they trying to do? How's the market twisting? How's it turning? And be able to apply those markets and maybe just make this kind of, you know, systemic web, right? Which is how I kind of view the market. And I'm basically in that role, creating nodes within the market and linking them up, right? And putting people in touch with other people and saying, hey, you got a great idea. You got a great need. How about we put the two of you together and you both can prosper off of it? So it's about bringing these new innovative companies to complete Thomas's offering, and as well as bringing these new customers on board to say like, hey, Thomas offers something different and new. And in general, it's really just about getting people to communicate and talk and learn from each other and grow from each other.
Yeah, and I mean, in the diagnostic space, there's so much, great work that's going on as well, and for sure, people need that that sort of guidance, but also just the ability to sort of continue to connect as well.
Right. Absolutely. And I focus specifically on clinical diagnostics. But I do, try my best to use my knowledge to expand any type of footprint within any space or, even within the diagnostic space to bring on these new levels, and also expand kind of our customer base and the whole thing. So
Absolutely, it's great. So, in from your perspective, what are some of the biggest challenges that you see in life sciences?
So obviously, with the recent pandemic, most people are aware of the supply challenges that we see, right? And a lot of people learned of a new way to do business. So a lot of people were, hey, I've got my product, I've got, my supply channel, I'm all set, right? And the pandemic came along and basically gave everybody a big slap to the face. But giant wake up call. This is not going to work out for you, right? When you sole source or single source from one single location of the world and the world goes into some sort of global chaos, you've got serious issues in your supply chain, which then, blocks your product and then blocks your ability to really function in the market. So the biggest challenge that I see in life science right now is getting people to understand that it's absolutely essential that you have not just one, but two, sources for your materials that either go into your product or that you need for your company, right? And honestly, I'd prefer three. And I try to tell my customers that every time I say, hey, don't pick my product that I've given you. Don't pick that as your sole source, right? I mean, you need to have a backup because yeah, I mean, I can store it. I can have as much inventory as you like, but at the end of the day, can I guarantee that that product's going to be there at the end of the day? Who knows, right? I really can't guarantee that. What if we go to work somewhere, right? And that person supplies your product. You're going to have serious supply challenges. So I think moving forward, that's a big challenge that I see. Um, is that you have these inability to really source the materials that you want, and maybe more trying to source the materials that you need is more of an important prerequisite. But I think also the key word there that you used is challenge, right? And so I think another challenge that I'm currently seeing in the market, and it's not big, but I see it. Like I said, not a problem. It's not a problem yet, but it's a challenge is that there's just been a lot of money that's kind of flowed out also because of this, right? You've got a lot of companies that have benefited and growing, a lot of them are spawning up. I mean, there's a new company created just basically every day in Boston alone, right? And there's a few of them in there that are really probably not as up to snuff as they should, right? A lot of fraud is coming out and a lot of fraud is coming to the market. I mean, everybody's heard of the Theranos case, right? And I've certainly seen a couple instances of that. Like again, I want to make ssure that I'm stressing it's not a problem first, right? It's definitely not going to problem point, but I'd say it's a challenge, right? Because you have a lot of money flowing around. People need to be aware of who they're investing in and making sure that they're making wise investments and that the company has the proven technology to really make a difference in the world. Being able to weed through that, especially as I bring products to market, I mean, somebody brings me their innovative product, says this is going to revolutionize the world. I always, approach the issue with a healthy dose of skepticism, right? I like to warn my customer up front. Hey, I've never seen this in action, but here you go. Let's see if it works for you, and give me honest feedback because I want to know if it sucks. Because I definitely want to go back to the maker and saying, hey, listen, I'm not getting the same feedback that you promised me out here.
Mhm.
And so, I try to be transparent and completely open to my customers and warn them and tell them that, if I have no history on this, well, you might want to take a little deeper look at it. But like I said, it's so far it's sporadic. It's definitely very, very rare. But it's something that, if left unchecked, it could grow, right? And so that's why I say it's a challenge, just being able to tell right from wrong.
Yeah, and I think, I think having the ability as well to test the science is not something every company has as well. I mean, obviously the companies that are putting out the products, should be able to stand behind them. But on the other side, the consumer, also has to know what they're getting and be able to clearly say, yes, this meets what we're looking for or not as well. And nobody better than to say that than the person that's actually going to use it. So
Exactly.
I
I mean,
think I understand what you mean. On the
we
flip side,
saw.
I'm
Oh, go ahead.
sorry?
Oh, I was just gonna say we saw a lot of this when I was doing a lot of OEM, right? I mean, we saw a lot of companies taking our product and trying to put it back out to market or, advertising it as their own and not notifying us, right? Not
Mm.
telling us that that's what they were doing. And that's troublesome and worrisome. And we would shut that down immediately when we found out about that, right? But I mean, it's something to be aware of. Make sure that, the person that you are buying from is actually manufacturing the product itself. And if they're not, they need to be upfront. Transparent. I mean, that's something that, Thomas advertises right on our page. We are a pure play distributor, right? The product that you get from us is coming from somebody else. And we are happy to tell you, connect you with that company because we stand behind their products too, right? That's what our partnership is about.
So that leads me to my next question. What do you think the biggest opportunities are in life sciences?
Yeah, I mean that's a great question. It's the same sort of thing. If you have a lot of money being pumped into the market, you have a lot of opportunity, right? There certainly has its advantages to have that much money flowing into this market. And currently, I see a major shift in the paradigm of life sciences field and clinical diagnostics in general. I've been screaming about it for years, and usually it falls on deaf ears, but there's some serious new technological breakthroughs that, similar to PCR, similar to electron microscopy, similar to these protocols that just kind of, you know, get invented and appear and come into the marketplace that are really going to revolutionize how we look at the life science field. And, I don't think people have really understood or interpreted how big of an impact some of these technological breakthroughs are. PCR got its start in the mid 80s and it really didn't become a real, useful tool in the lab because most people didn't really know and understand how to use it, how to put it to use. But being able to then take that technology and find its uses and being able to say, hey, we could really use it for this. Oh, guess what? We can use it for this here. I think that, it takes 10 or 20 years for the product to really adapt itself to the market. And we're seeing the same thing right now, right? So you have lots of different diagnostic techniques, including loop mediated isothermal amplification, which is named LAMP for short. So this LAMP technology is beautiful because it's like PCR, but it's isothermal. So for those that understand PCR requires cycling, right? You have to heat it up, cool it down, heat it up, cool it down over 30 times. And that's what during the COVID, everybody's like, oh, 30, 40 cycles. How many cycles is it necessary to run? And, you know, loop mediated amplification really just needs a hot water bath or even temperature. You could sit on it probably, right? And be able to
Mhm.
get the same result. Now, it's not going to be used in the research field, but it's absolutely going to be critical in the diagnostics. So you have, a lot of my customers right now are currently working on LAMP assays to bring those to market. And you actually have a product right now available on Amazon for $39. And it is a loop mediated amplification available to you for COVID testing, right? And this is a molecular test. It's truly breakthrough to be able to take that diagnostic and take it away from the lab, take it away from the hospital, and put it right in your hands in your home and have it just as reliable as what you could get in the laboratory, right? That is a remarkable shift in the paradigm of how we view diagnostics. You don't need a doctor to tell you, you don't need a nurse to tell you. And I don't think people really understood the ramifications of what's coming with that, right? Doctors and nurses are going to be more relied upon for treatment. And then you got diagnostics that are, take place at your home. And basically you're going to go into the doctor and tell them, well, this is what I got. Right. And I think that this is a huge revolution that people really haven't conceptualized yet. And of course, that goes hand in hand with CRISPR technologies. CRISPR. Everybody's talking about CRISPR today. And, but again, this is, 15-year-old technology that people are just now realizing, hey, look at all this stuff that we can do with it. Look at how accurate of a diagnostic we can get out of it. Look how quick of a diagnostic. Look at how we can, move to gene therapy and start curing people with ailments that we never even thought of approaching. We're truly living at a truly remarkable time in life science. And I think, that to me is some of the biggest opportunity that I see is just this growing, evolving field and being a part of it.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, I definitely agree with you on the technology side and, watching a lot of these things grow. I also know that, there's tough times for a lot of companies in terms of financing and things like that as well that they're currently living through. I'm hoping that, a lot of the supply chain issues that we've seen. I mean, I was telling somebody, recently in a different podcast that I'm really kind of shocked to see how long these supply chain issues have kind of extended and cut across all sorts of, different industries, right? I mean, it's not just in life sciences. It's not just in, things that you're buying for your house and, cars are another example. I mean, we just seem to have, examples all over the place. I know we recently ordered some furniture for my house and one of the reasons for delays in the furniture delivery was supply chain issues. And, whether that's the excuse of the day, I mean, for some things, right? I mean, I don't know. I mean, I've heard that, even like the egg shortage, has to do with more with, finding infected birds and having to, essentially, kill off a lot of the birds that were supplying the eggs. So that causes supply chain issue, which is not a central cause that you're going to find, anywhere else in any other supply chain. So, you kind of look at these things and you have to say, well, how much of it is a single source cause versus, something that cuts across lots of different industries and, can be felt. But like you said, having a company like Thomas Scientific that is constantly monitoring your supply chain, it seems like an important thing to have as well.
Yeah, exactly. And to go to your point, right? I mean, even though you might have different suppliers, lots of times they're coming out of the same region of the world, right? I mean, if it's, I don't even know what, I'll throw out a number here, but let's say 80% of our plastics are coming out of China, right? Well, when China has their boats sitting off the coast of California and not docking and not unloading, you have disruptions in like you said, I mean, a lot of the furniture today has plastics integrated into it. And, a lot of the fibers, they might be coming from who knows elsewhere. And it's easy to think of a simple product. It's hard to think of the number of raw materials that have to go into such a simple product, right? I mean, part of about 80% of my business when I ran the OEM group there at Hygiene for North America was enzymes. And I can't tell you that every single customer, I mean, it would tell me, well, making enzymes is not rocket science. I can do it myself. I said, fine, go ahead. My guess, and sure enough, 6 months later, we'd be back at the table and they'd be like, I need more enzyme. I'm like, yeah, I know you do. It's not as easy as it sounds. It is very hard when you start factoring in all the raw ingredients that you need, as well as all the material that you need. It is a challenge to start putting together what you think are some of the most, simplistic products, even like for towel and furniture, right? So.
Yeah, I mean, that was the other thing that, instantly came to mind was, I mean, early on in COVID, I mean, the first disruption that you saw in the supply chain was toilet paper,
Yeah.
so, I mean, that's where things sort of started. And then it kind of branched out from there. And similarly, I mean, like you're talking about with them enzymes, I had similar sort of experience whenever I was with GE Healthcare and we were supplying stainless steel beds for large scale columns. It was a similar, sort of experience where people would tell you, look, I can go get, stainless steel. And I would constantly tell people it has to be this grade so that we can do what we need to with it. If you could supply it for me, great. But similar sort of experience. I mean, people would look and instantly find out that it was as tough as I had described, if not tougher. So to
Right.
find the material. So yeah, it's one of those things where you really got to pick apart and kind of live in the supply chain of the space that you're looking for. And that's one of the reasons why, I think this idea of having a company that works with you with suppliers is a smart thing for most organizations that are looking to scale up. That they do as well. Just consider the companies that are out there and sort of look at what they'll bring. And a large part of that is their supply chain knowledge.
Right. And I think that's kind of a general advantage of working with a distributor itself, right? I mean, a lot of people are like, well, why don't I just go direct? Well, number one reason is how many different suppliers you want to be working with on a weekly basis, right? If you're sourcing 120, 150 different items from 150 different vendors, you won't have the time to be able to manage that many vendors, right? Being able to go to one-stop shop and say, hey, I can buy all my components through you. I say, well, that makes sense. But additionally, another thing to think about is that I don't own any of the products that I'm really putting into people's hands, right? So that makes me unbiased in how I approach them and say, hey, listen, I'm just trying to solve your problem here. I don't really care that, who you buy from. I want you to have the best product, right? And I want you to have it in the fashion, the way that you want. And I think there's value to it, right? I mean, certainly it's, you want to go shop at a store where people know your name. You want to go shop at a store where if they're happy to see you, like, hey, Don, welcome, come on in. I mean, you don't want to go to a store where you're just a number and nobody cares about you, right? You want to go where your customer, where your, whoever you're seeing wants to truly know about you, know that you're doing well, and wants to help you look good and succeed, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, hey, Isaac, this brings me to the last three questions that I ask of every guest. What inspires you?
So what inspires me? That's a tough question. Honestly, I'm going to pull from my Indiana roots here and go back. I mean, not, in this call without a Larry Bird quote, right? But I read Larry Bird's biography quite a few years ago. And in that, he kind of talks about, his accolades and everything he's done. And that really kind of surprised me how he approached that. So he started in saying, like, what people ask him all the time, what's the greatest accomplishment that he ever had in his life? And he says in the book, the way that I remember it, it was playing with the 92 Dream Team with the likes of Jordan and all these greats. Never even mentions that he won the gold medal, never mentions that, anything like that. It was truly a selfless, recognition. And that to me is like a true inspiration to me, is somebody who really plays knowing that they're better, that they're trying to be better than themselves, right? They're trying to be something greater than themselves, and to wear a country's colors, to stand with the greats and be considered one of those greats was his greatest accomplishment. And that's a value that I hold myself. I, I truly am inspired to be something greater than myself, right? We live in a really complex world with complex markets and many players within. If you can make a system be worth more than the sum of its parts, and you're piece of that, a driving factor of that, then you've really made an impact in the world, which is what you're really trying to do. I mean, the title of your podcast is Life Science Success, but how do you really measure success? What is successful to someone? That's to me a really pertinent question, right? You get a lot of people on here that are very obviously successful, CEOs, COOs, what have you, in very high roles. I myself worked up to be a lab director at Harvard, so to speak. There I was dragging my heels to work every day. I wasn't happy, right? The other people around me, appreciated what I did, but I didn't feel good about myself. And, I think success in general is being able to feel good, not only about yourself, but also to have other people look at you and say, you really made a difference. I said, yeah, there's a reason you are here, and I'm glad that you were in this role and were able to help out. And to me, that's the measure of success is being good at what you do, number one, but being acknowledged for being good at what you do. I'm not impressed with titles or fame. It doesn't matter, how high you've gone up, how much money. I don't lead by that. I don't lead by my titles. I don't lead my degrees, or or credentials. What really impresses me and what makes me inspired is people who make a difference in this world, right? Can you brighten somebody's day? Can you solve their problem? Or at a bare minimum, did you make a difference in what you were trying to do, right? Is anybody going to remember you, right? As long as you're affecting people and making them happy and making their lives better, that to me is the ultimate measure of success and what I inspire. What inspires me to get up out of bed. It's to make this world a better place. And I'm not just virtue signaling on that. That's honestly how I feel.
Well, thank you for sharing that. And I mean, oftentimes I tell people that, if you really listen to the episodes, a lot of times, even though we don't, sort of dwell on them, a lot of the things that we talk about with people is not just their successes, but the failures that sort of led them to where they are now. Right. And, to me, those moments where you sort of, see somebody see the bigger part of a team, making an impact, or making a bigger impact in general in the world is inspiring. I find it inspiring as well.
Yeah, exactly. Right. I mean, you have a lot of people that you work with that, they get the job done and hey, I'm good, and sometimes you need a little bit more than good, right? You're not a silo. You're not an island. You're, part of a greater organization, or you're part of a greater group. And you need to aspire to be better. Yeah. And, be a better individual, be a better contributor, right? To make sure that the system does work, more than the sum of its parts.
Yeah, for sure. What concerns you?
So what concerns me? So I mean, I've seen a worrying trend lately, and especially in the world and in the marketplace. And what concerns me, especially from my perspective in the life sciences, is that, and we could dwell all day on what the causes and the problems are. I mean, someone would point to social media, someone would point to the internet. Who knows? But it's created a population of people who no longer want to talk to each other, right? You reach out to people, 9 times out of 10 now, you just don't get a response. Even people you work with, right? And you're like, hey, can you answer me by the end of the day and let me know what you think on this? And lots of times you have a hard time getting people to understand that you can have a conversation, right? That they can talk to someone, that people don't need to be aliens. You don't want to do everything through internet. You don't want to do everything through email. And, and I see it just getting worse with the younger and younger generations, right? I see it in my kids. I mean, we've kept them off social media, but you can't keep away their phones these days, right? So, I mean, it's their friends and everybody texting and that sense of having such access right there in your palm, being able to get to an answer really makes you biased against getting an opinion, right? Getting somebody else's eyes on the problem. I mean, it was back to the quote that I mentioned earlier. You really want a fresh set of eyes, even somebody who has no idea what in the world you're talking about, being able to come back, talk to you, be able to get you to realize from a different perspective how things look to them. Right. And I think that's what's really concerning to me is that I see this trend going that way where people see it, accept the fact of learning from each other, hearing each other, being able to have a dialogue back and forth, to be, civil to each other and be able to understand and learn from each other instead of just turning on and saying, I'm just getting my answer from Google. I don't care. Right. And I think that's very dangerous, especially when I see it in the current market, the life science markets. I mean, there's certain advantages to it, obviously, right? I mean, it's fantastic, the technology we have, but we have to also realize the drawbacks and realize that there's just no harm in having a conversation. Pick up the phone, call somebody, talk to them. I mean, my daughters like shudder when I think about, hey, pick up the phone and call me. What? I'll text you. I don't. Right. And that really, the point of life is really to learn and improve. You have to do that through multiple sources, not just one. And you're not going to get all your answers off Google. I'm sorry. As one of my friends, told me one time, he said, that's a scary thought to me is that I'm no longer needed as a father, right? He's like, my son can learn everything that he needs to learn from watching YouTube. And, it's a really scary thought when you think about it because we don't want that, right? We hand down traditions, we hand down cultures, we hand down, perception. And that is lost if you go full, interwebs, right?
Yeah.
And I think it's critical that people just don't go that way. So it concerns me that I see it happening. And I hope I'm optimistic that hopefully it can change.
Yeah, human connection is so important, right? I mean, and one of the things that I oftentimes talk about is just this whole idea of scientific discovery. Scientific discovery doesn't happen without a human sort of thinking about their hypothesis and testing that hypothesis against real life data. And then there are places to go get these answers, and it's not always just the first Google answer that comes up. It's oftentimes you have to sort of question what are the sources behind it, and it's only going to become more challenging with things like ChatGPT and the whole AI movement as well, because these things start to actually seem like they're really founded in fact. And the reality is you need to be able to question those things and test them. And oftentimes, if you know an expert and you can pick up the phone, to your point, and call the expert and say, where do I start? Or where, I've seen this, does this make sense to you? To me, those sort of conversations are much more important. Overall, because then you can start to test and shorten the cycle time to learn, but you're also not sort of taking the first answer out of the internet either, which to your point could be dangerous.
Well, exactly, right? I mean, prove used to be a naughty word among scientists, right? I mean, science was always about skepticism. It was always about challenging what you thought, what you believed. And I've seen so many scientists and so many life science, articles now use, and we set out to prove. Well, you don't prove anything in science. Nothing is ever proved, right? You always have to take it with a huge dose of skepticism and make every single attempt you can to disprove what you believe. And when you fail, you must obviously accept that you were right to begin with, right? I mean, that's the whole scientific method. And I think a lot of the world and the way we think of just like, oh, I could just get the answer here. It's just not the way it needs to be, right? That's not the way that we view life. That's not the way that we view science. It's really about, challenging that thought and basically, like I said, seeing through new eyes and be able to say, well, the possibility exists that I might be wrong and I need to evaluate it.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing that. Lastly, what excites you?
So I'm driven by the desire to help others and make the world a better place. I mean, these are truly exciting times we're living in. Huge technological breakthroughs and truly novel and brilliant ideas that are being brought to the market. And I love I love my job. Absolutely love it. I get up every morning with enthusiasm and excitement to get out there and learn something new every day. Right. And I'm right at the forefront of it. And it's nothing excites me more to be in right. But also being in the role that really enables others to succeed and watching their growth, watching their success, truly keeps me optimistic and excited for what's around the corner. It's really easy to be bogged down and depressed with what you hear and read about in our world today, right? And people have just gotten so angry and hateful, and this us versus them mentality is really tearing at the soul of the human race, right? But by going out every day and bringing people closer together to share knowledge, help each other, kind of shines a light on this dark world and a dark world that doesn't need to be there, right? And it excites me to be able to enable people to be successful in their enterprise, in their daily life. I mean, perhaps, my little effort can inspire some type of hope and show people that there's a brighter world on the other side of all this. That to me is truly exciting, right? To be a part of making the world a better place than how we found it. That's how I view life, and that's how I live my life.
Very good. Well, Isaac Houston, thank you so much for being a guest on the Life Science Success Podcast. I greatly appreciated you being here, getting to learn more about you as well as Thomas Scientific. Thanks a lot for sharing with us.
Yeah, absolutely, Don. It was fantastic to be here.
All right. Thank you. Thank you for listening to Life Science Success. For complete details about this podcast, including show notes, how to get in touch with guests, and more episodes, please visit www.lifesciencesuccess.com. If there's someone you'd like for us to invite to the show as a guest, please let me know by sending me a message at the podcast website. Please click subscribe on your favorite podcast app, share the podcast, or tell a friend about it. And last but not least, rate the podcast. Thank you again.